Hello, I'm Mark Lakey from Warwickshire Police Learning and Development Department, and this is an instructional video for new users of OneFile. So this is lesson 2, plans and assessment. I've already done a previous video which is an orientation about the basic features and functions of OneFile for brand new users. I hope you find this useful. So in this video we're going to look at how you actually accept a plan from your assessor, what happens when you accept a plan, and how assessments work. Okay, so first of all we'll cover the location of assessments. Where do you find them? Then we'll look at what types of assessment there are, because there are 2 principal types. 3, we'll look at receiving an assessment. So that's something that somebody else has done and sent to you as a candidate. Your assessor who's done perhaps an observation or a professional discussion, or has looked at some of your work product that you've sent them, something like that. So they will have written the assessment for you, or they would have written the assessment and sent it to you for you to review and approve their feedback and awarding decisions on the work that's been done. 4 is accepting an assessment. So what do you do once you're happy with that thing that's been sent to you by your assessor? 5 is creating an assessment, because most of your evidential work will be self-generated. Not everything's going to be sent to you by your assessor. There'll be a bit of a balance there. So how do you create an assessment? 6, updating and forwarding them. So what do you do with them once you complete and you want someone else to look at it? And how do you update it if it's been sent back to you? If there's time at the end of that, we'll have a look at the location of plans. Where are your plans? How do you accept them? And how do you review old plans to remind yourself about what you've agreed to do? Okay, so that's they're the objectives of this particular video. So I hope you find it useful. Okay, so log into OneFile. I showed you how to do this in the orientation video. And log into your account. Okay, so here we see the account that I've got. Let's move that over there. Okay, so where are the assessments? Well, there are 2 places. Firstly, they're in the sidebar as a shortcut. They are also within your portfolio. So if I show you inside your portfolio, you will see here, this is your portfolio, that there's a number of different information and options in here. So this is the program of study that you're on, how much progress you've made, what your target should be, your plans, in your assessments. Okay, so if you click on your assessments here, it will take you to the same place as if you'd clicked on the sidebar here. Now I appreciate that most of you will just click on the sidebar, but I thought it would be helpful to at least see where it was within your portfolio. So clicking on the assessments, I'm just going to tidy up that sidebar, make it a bit narrower to tidy up my desk space for working. And here they are. So here are my assessments, as you can see. Now look, if we look here, you can see that I can ask it to show me what my pending assessments are, i.e. what work is still ongoing, but I can also ask it to show me what ones I've completed, which ones are planned for the future, etc. Usually, most people will only look at their pending ones and perhaps review their completed ones. You don't generally need to use these, but there may be a bunch of assessments that require your action as opposed to somebody else's action, and there may be some for the future that don't appear on your current list. Okay. So within here, these are the current assessments then. These are the pending ones, and you'll see that the date that they were created is on the left-hand side, followed by a reference. So DOB stands for direct observation. This is when the assessor goes out to the candidate and watches them in the workplace performing their daily role. The assessor will write that assessment up and send it to the candidate for review. So it's a direct observation. There's some information here about how long it's taken. That's populated within the assessment itself. You don't do it from this screen. There's a related plan. Did it arise from an agreed plan? And this here, action required by the learner. Okay, now that's important because you will see that most of these ones here, action is required by the learner, but this here, action is required by the assessor. What that tells you, as you look at your assessment screen, is that these ones are sitting with the candidate. The actions required by them, that's work required by them. But the one from the assessor, it's either because you've sent it to the assessor and it's waiting for them to review it, or the assessor is currently writing it up for you to review. But it will show you who the action is required by. It's important to know who the action is required by, because although you can see all of your assessments, you can only edit and update the ones that are sitting with you. So the beauty of OneFile is, rather than putting a physical portfolio in the internal post and going backward and forward for review, the portfolio is always available to be viewed by both the candidate and the assessor, and by other people that might be the change, such as the IQA or centre manager. So everybody involved in that bit of work can look at it, but only one person can update it and edit it, and that's the person where the action is required by. Okay, so that's the location of your assessment. So the types of the assessment. Now there are two main types. So although it looks down the centre column here, that there are different types of methods: direct observation, product, underpinning knowledge, product evidence, and direct observation. That's just the method by which the evidence is going to be collected. But there are two formats, two types of evidence, and they are holistic and by criteria. I'll show you the by criteria first, and we'll go to UPK1. Okay, so you may well know already that UPK stands for underpinning knowledge. That's an assessment on what you know and understand. It's called K&U, knowledge and understanding. This some people like to think of as the theory or the academic side of things, but this is about what you know and understand, as opposed to what you've done. Okay, so if we look at this UPK1 here, just click on any of those links, will take you through to it. You'll see that UPK1 has a unit title, and there's some criteria here. Criteria are the individual elements you need to evidence. And so here we've got explain the use of benchmarks in managing performance and explain a range of quality management techniques. So each criteria has its own box, as you can see. And the candidate will evidence their knowledge and understanding by answering the question, by telling the assessor what they know and understand about that particular criteria. And the reason that we do UPK by criteria is that it allows the candidate to answer it question at a time and concentrate on answering that particular question and producing the evidence of their knowledge and understanding of that particular subject. Okay? Now, as a bit of a tip here for you, the by criteria ones like this don't have much of a word processing function on OneFile. So the best way to do this is to type it out on a Word document and then cut and paste afterwards. Okay, do it question by question and just submit your knowledge and understanding for each of those questions by transferring it from a Word document into those boxes just by copy and paste. Really straightforward. You can type it in here. You can even expand the boxes to make them bigger, but to be honest, it's not a really, when you're trying to convey complex information or you're trying to get, structure your answers, that's not the best way. So do it on a Word document and then copy and paste it in. Okay. Now, we're going to show you a couple of little bits of OneFile now that are the quirks. There's only a couple of little quirks on OneFile. It's actually a really intuitive, really user-friendly system. But so here we are. We've got our UPK up. I'm working away. I've submitted a part of an answer, right? And there are three options at the bottom: save and refresh, save and quit, and cancel. If I press save and refresh, the green button on the left, it will save the work that I've done, include any updates since I last saved it. But it will keep the formatted assessment on the screen. If I save and quit, it will do the same. It will save, but it will take me back to my assessments. Okay, that's the difference between those. And cancel will get rid of it, take you back to there, but it won't have saved any updates that you've done. So be careful with using cancel. Use save and refresh or save and quit. Okay, so in the supporting evidence box, as you can see, supporting evidence here, and that's where you put your answers. You answer your questions. There is another free text evidence box here. It's a bit like what you have in a holistic assessment. You don't tend to use those, to be honest, but you can do. But most people get away with prefer to do it in the free text boxes above. Okay, you can answer further stuff there. You've got an add attachment button here. If you want to upload any documents that support your evidence, then you can add them there. But you can also add them alongside each individual answer, as you can see. Select attachments. Okay, so if you wanted, for example, to put some documentation that shows what wider reading you've done, you could do it there. Okay, so this is a by criteria assessment. All assessments will have a feedback and comments box. So in here, I can write to my assessor and say, I've done the first question. Can you have a look? And then I can put how much time I've spent doing it. So I've spent 25 minutes doing that question. OneFile won't let you finish an assessment until you tell it how long it's taken to do it. It's just another little tip. Okay, so when you are finished with the assessment and you want to send it on to the next person, then you tick this box, the declaration and signatures box, and you sign it on completion there. Okay, so you sign here, as it says there, only sign here when you're finished with this assessment and want to send it on to the next person. Right? You don't need to wait till the whole assessment is finished with the UPK. Certainly in the early stages, you might want to do 2 or 3 questions just to calibrate yourself and get a bit of a feel for how it's going. So you might decide to send it on to the next person when it's only half complete. But if you tell your assessor that in the feedback box, they will understand. They'll go, okay, yeah, they've done the first question. They want me to have a bit of a look at it, and then they can send it back. So anyway. So usually though, especially as you get more comfortable, you'll complete the whole thing. You'll tell the assessor that you've done it in the feedback and comments box. You'll tick the declaration and then you save and quit. Okay? So that's an additional thing you need to do when you've completed the assessment. When you're working on it, you can save and refresh it to keep it on the screen. You can save and quit it to keep it in your assessments, and you can sign it to say it's complete, and then save and quit it, and that will send it on to the next person. Okay, so when we go back to our assessments now, we'll see that whereas before we had just one was with the assessor, if you remember, now this one is also with the assessor. So I can still look at it, but I can no longer update it because it's now sitting with that person. Okay. So that is what's called a by criteria assessment. So each individual criteria has its own box for putting the evidence in, that the evidence is there. By and large, we only use those for UPK, for the knowledge and understanding, because it obviously fits really well with that style of question, that style of evidence presentation. The other type of assessment is a holistic assessment. So for example, let's have a little look here. Product evidence, PE3. Okay, we'll click on this one here. And we'll scroll down the screen. Now this one's different. As you can see, there's only one evidence box. There's not those individual evidence boxes. Okay, so in here, this is where you will write the evidence that you want to present for assessment in here. Okay, that's straightforward. So going through it in order, what the assessor will want from you is they'll want the reference number will be automatically populated. It's given an automatic number, you don't need to worry about that. You'll need to do the date that you did it, you'll need to give it a title. Okay, and then once you've done that, you can write your evidence in here. If you want to add an attachment up to the assessment, you put it on this add attachment here, just as before on the UPK by criteria assessment. So a lot of the buttons are the same. It's just the format's different. Now the reason we call this a holistic assessment is because With this piece of evidence here, you can write about what you did, you know, this activity that you did that's generating evidence that meets the criteria in your particular learning program. Once you've done that, you can set the criteria. That means you can select the awards that you think you would like to claim or that you think the assessor might be able to award. Once you press set criteria, another box will open up and all of the units that you're currently in your learning program will open up here and you can tick them off. You can say, oh yeah, I did this and I did this. Okay. And you can select from any unit. As long as it's evidenced, you can select from any unit, hence it being holistic. What's useful here is you can still see the evidence that you have entered in the box underneath. So you can, as you go through, you can look at the criteria and say, oh yeah, I did that, and I did that, and I can claim that. But you might notice something that you've done here where you did do it, but you haven't written about it. So what you can do in that instance is you can edit this and add some sentences to say that I also did another thing. And you can explain what you did and provide the supporting documentation for that, and then you can claim that award. Okay. Once you've claimed your awards, you save those awards using this button here. Oops. Save them. And that's a bit like the save and refresh. So it's now saved those claims that you've made, but it's kept it on the screen. Once you've saved it, go back and you'll see that here are the criteria that you've now claimed. That's the box you ticked. And you can claim as many criteria as have been evidenced. Okay. Okay. So once again, you've got the feedback and comment box. This is where you and your assessor can have a discussion. The evidence up here is quite dry. You know, you're actually just writing about the thing that you did that satisfies the criteria. But further down, you can actually say, you know, that was a tough day, or please can you have a look at this, or I'm not sure whether I've asked for this, but I'm not sure whether it's claimable, or, you know, etc., etc. So that's where you have the discussion with your assessor in the box here. Once again, you'd have to fill in a learner time. It won't let you complete it without. And again, you can save and refresh to keep it on the screen. You can save and quit to save it but keep it in your workload. Or when you're ready and you've finished with the assessment and you want to send it to the next person, just like it says here, that's when you tick the box and then save and quit. Okay, so that's a by criteria assessment. So they're the two main types. They're the two main types, the by criteria, which we use for underpinning knowledge, the theory side, and the holistic, which is used for your performance evidence. That's what you actually did, and this is the claims you want to make. Now, just as you were able to claim any awards in the set criteria, so can the assessor. The assessor can assess holistically, which means they might spot some activities that enable awards to be given, and which they can add to those criteria. They can also take away if the evidence you've offered doesn't satisfy the claims you've made. So both parties can add criteria awards. And if the assessor decides to award, he or she will tell you in the feedback and comments. And if they decide not to award, they'll explain why and give you some developmental feedback in there. Okay, fill in the timesheet, sign on completion when you want to send it to the next person, save and quit. I'm not going to send it to the next person. I'm going to keep it my work for now. I'm going to save and quit and take me back to my assessments. Okay. So I've showed you where your assessments are. And I've shown you what the some of the information on the table means, and you can see who's got control of it at the moment. I've told you about by criteria assessments used for knowledge and understanding, the theory, and I've showed you the holistic assessments which are used for performance evidence. Okay, so we're now going to go on to receiving an assessment. Okay, so looking at our table here, we can see that a direct observation, this one here, has been done by the assessor. and the assessor spent 60 minutes on it, and it's now sitting with the learner. So there would probably been a task on this. Please review this. You know, I've talked about the tasks in an earlier video. So you can now look at your direct observation, see what the assessor's done. And you'll see that they've, it's DOB2, direct observation example, because it's a training account. The criteria have been awarded, as you can see there, in several bits have been awarded. Okay, several bits of criteria have been awarded. And what's he said? So the evidence, the assessor will write up the evidence. Usually on this day I came to see this person, and whilst with them I observed them doing this, this and this, and they relate to the awarding for criteria, you know, X, Y and Z, you know, the criteria that are up here. So in here the assessor will write the details of the observation assessment. There may be attachments such as images of assessor notes or audio recordings of discussion. So just like you can attach documentations and supporting things, so the assessor can too. The evidence will link to the criteria that's been awarded, and so when you see the way that the assessor has written it up, then that will give you an indication of how the links are made. Okay, in the feedback and comment box below, the assessor will converse with you, feedback on the awards given, developmental feedback and guidance for moving forward, and you can respond to it and say thanks very much, etc. I mean, I'm not going to show you all the fancy things, but you know, you can change the font color and size and all that sort of stuff. But for now, I'll just show you the basic operations. Okay. The assessor has put in that they worked on this for 60 minutes. You also need to put how long you worked on it. So if you were observed for 30 minutes, but the assessor's taken 30 minutes to write it up, they'll put 60 in. So I'm going to assume that this particular one, I was being observed for 30 minutes. Okay, so I've seen the awards given, I've read the evidence, I've read the feedback from the assessor, I've thanked the assessor for it, I've put how long I've put my timesheet in for, and now, again, so I need to sign because I've finished with this assessment. So you sign when you're complete and you want to send it to the next person in the chain, and then save and quit. And then that will get rid of that. That's now done. And those awards are now added to my account. So my progress will no doubt have gone up. You'll see there's one less assessment in my pending portfolio because it's moved across to the completed. It's now in the completed. And if we go back to home, we'll see, not much, but the progress will have gone up a little bit. Doesn't show much really, does it? It's still on 1%, but that's how you add the progress to your account. Okay, so that's how you receive an assessment and how you accept the assessment. So you've looked in your assessments, you've seen that it was there, you've read it, you've accepted it, you've ticked the completion, and you save and quit, so it's all accepted. So the next thing is going to be creating an assessment. And as you can see here, the button for creating an assessment is within the assessment portfolio. And it's really as straightforward as pressing create assessment. Okay. OneFile will make you accept any outstanding plans before you can create any new work. So it's going to interfere with the timetable for the learning plan, but I'm going to accept it anyway. So you will know, forgive me, from the taskbar. I explained about taskbars in the last video. Please sign your recently prepared plan by Mark Lakey. Okay, so I need to sign a plan before I'm allowed to create any new work. So it's a new plan. Please read and accept. This task has been set up to make a training video. So basically, this is just here to show you how to accept a plan. So a plan's been sent. There's a title, the details of what it's going to ask me to do, some feedback and comments. Just like before, you need to sign it to agree it. It's yellow highlighted, as we said before. OneFile highlights things that you need to do or wants to draw your attention to. So you sign to agree the plan and then you press the red button to accept it. So it's sign it to agree it, and then green button to accept it. You might decide to reject it, but it'd be unusual. Okay. So we want to set up a new assessment, don't we? So we go to assessments, we press create assessment. It will ask, what's your primary method? What's the main way you're going to convey this evidence? It's likely to be a reflective account. It might be product evidence. They're the two that you are most likely to initiate yourself. Okay, so let's choose reflective account. That's where I'm going to write about what I did. It then asks you how you want to record this evidence. Do you want it holistically against multiple criteria or separately? Now, we know that separately, individual criteria is for UPK, so it defaults to holistically. It's in the right place. So you leave it where it is and you press start. And there you have a new assessment. You need to give it a meaningful title, so I'm going to call it meaningful title. But it could be my missing person, my planning for a warrant, my team briefing. It could be whatever it was you're going to write about what you did. Give it a meaningful title, and I'll show you why in a minute. We talked before about setting criteria, but it's usually better to do your evidence first. Because as we've seen, when you go to select your criteria, it will show the evidence you've written and you can compare the two and make sure you claim all the correct awards. Okay, now the UPK by criteria didn't have much of a word processing function, whereas this one does. You can see here, you can change the heading, fonts, size, colour, all that kind of stuff. Put bold and italics and all that sort of stuff. I would still say that this word processing function isn't very good. You can make the box bigger to see what you're doing. I would say instead, write it on a Word document and copy and paste it in. You have got a button for importing directly from a Word document if the Word document is on the same computer that you're using OneFile on, but I find it much better to write it all out on the Word document so that I can spell check it, all that kind of stuff, and then copy and paste it in. So the evidence goes in there, and as we saw before, once the evidence in, so if I put evidence in, I'll save and refresh that so it keeps it on my screen. Now when I go to select my criteria, what's my evidence about, I can choose the right criteria for awards, and I can still see the evidence that I wrote. Save the awards that I've chosen, go back to the assessment. Okay, and then I can write to my assessor here. I could write, and I've done this thing, I've done this bit, can you award? Write down how long it's taken me to do it, 5 minutes on this occasion. Right, so save and refresh keeps it on the screen, save and quit keeps it with me but takes me back to my assessment, but I want to send it to my assessor, so I've finished with it and I want to send it to the next person, which is here. Yeah, so I sign it, save and quit. Okay. And that's now gone to the next person. So that's how you create an assessment. Now, most people will create an assessment and work on it for some time. You won't necessarily create it, finish it, and send it all in the same sitting, but that's the basic process of creating an assessment. Okay, yeah, I think given that this video is now 30 minutes long, I'll do plans on a separate video. So this is purely for the assessment side of things. We've looked at the location of them. We've looked at the two different main types, the individual criteria and the holistic, the benefits of holistic being that any award can be given. We've talked about receiving one that's been pre-written for you, such as an observation. We've looked at accepting an assessment and finalising it so the awards get added. We've looked at creating our own assessments and how to update and forward them by the signature at the bottom and then sending it to the next person. So hopefully you found this video useful, and I'll do another one.